There's the 5-day wait where you're waiting for them to call and give you the report about how many embryos have made it, and day 5, they called me and said, "We're really sorry, but none of the embryos have made it." Yeah, 0.
None of them?
None of the embryos. We were obviously gutted. And then the next day, day 6, they called me back and said, "Hey, actually."
Welcome to the Infertility Club. Today's special guest is Brittany Fish, who is also one of my high school besties. So I'm feeling super lucky and blessed to have her on here. Brittany is an amazing mom of 4 miracle babies, and I am super excited to hear more about her journey today. Hi, Brittany. How you
Hi,
doing?
Kelsey. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Excited to share my story, and I hope that it can help others who are, going on that same journey right now. So it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much, Brittany. You're seriously the best. I definitely know there's so many out there that are just grasping for that little glimpse of hope. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful that you're willing to share. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. I remember being in that place myself and finding those stories, those people that I could cling to that gave me hope. There's one in particular that I feel like I watched her YouTube channel all the time and watched her going through it. And so yeah, I'm happy to hopefully provide some speck of hope for people, and I think it's awesome that you're doing this for everyone. It's much needed. So yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much. You're amazing. Oh, okay. Well, let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Brittany, what has your journey to motherhood looked like for you?
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't even know where to start, but we'll start back in 2010 or so. My husband and I had been married about a year and a half and decided, well, actually, we didn't really decide. I just felt kind of prompted that we should start trying to have a baby. Even though he was still in school, we were actually living with my in laws at the time. We had 0 money. And I just really felt like we should start trying.
Mhm.
And I'm so grateful that I kind of listened to that nudge because after how long it ended up taking us, had I waited any longer, it would have just kind of pushed that timeline. So we started trying, and after about a year of nothing happening, I felt, kind of like, okay, like this is taking longer than I expected. And my cousin actually had been going through some fertility treatments herself, and she had some leftover Clomid, and so she sent it to me in the mail and was like, "Just try this?"
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I self-medicated. I was like, "This is it. This is the answer." I felt like every stage of the journey, it was like, "This is what's going to, get me pregnant." And,
Mhm.
that didn't work, and finally decided, "You know what? Maybe I'll go see a doctor." Just an OBGYN here in Provo, and so I went to see the doctor, and that's where it kind of all started a little bit. I think it was really hard for me to admit to myself that something was wrong, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to be I didn't wanna be in this club, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
not something that
totally. Yeah.
people want to be in, and it took a long time for me to mentally accept, like, "You know what? Like, maybe I do need some help." So,
Mhm.
went to see, just a regular OBGYN here, and they ordered kind of Kelsey, it's been so long, like, I can't even remember what the terms are called, but, like,
That is
the dye
okay.
test, right? That they, like, shoot the dye up through your
Oh,
uterus
yes.
and check
I
to make
remember
sure
that one.
everything's clear and stuff. Everything was
Mhm.
fine, and so he actually, like, prescribed Clomid then. It's kinda like the first step in the journey.
Mhm.
After that not working for a couple months, we switched to Fermaro, which I feel like is also, like, that next step, and again, nothing was happening. I wasn't, like, getting pregnant and miscarrying, I wasn't getting pregnant at all. So, eventually, my husband and I moved to Arizona, and we had been there for about 6 months, and I was at a new job and decided maybe I should actually see a fertility specialist. And it had been, at this point, it'd probably been 2 years.
Wow.
So, again, like I said, I feel like mentally I just couldn't admit that something was wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So, I called
It's
around
a
different.
hard pill to swallow.
Yes, yes. Called around different fertility clinics, and I stumbled upon a doctor who a friend had recommended actually, and he was just setting up his own practice. So he had been in Scottsdale with other doctors, but he was setting up his own, practice by himself. And he was like welcoming patients with open arms at this point, and they said, "We can see you this week for free." I'm like, "Oh, that's what I like to hear."
Yeah, you're
I'm
like,
like,
"I'm
"Okay."
in. It sounds
Yeah,
great."
exactly. Like that feels very like non-committal, you know what I mean? Like I was nervous of just all the things. And so I went to see him, and at this point no one really knew his name, who he was, and now he's like all over the place. So anyway, so I went to see him and loved him from the start. He did a lot of thorough testing. Like he even noticed like a spot on my neck that could have been skin cancer. Like he like wanted to make sure that everything was good to go. So oh, and I'm forgetting actually there's stuff that happened before I actually did see a normal OBGYN in Arizona too.
Oh, really?
Um yeah, I forgot. I went to see Dr. Hewish, who everyone goes to see, and I was so excited. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I had surgery. I had surgery too.
Oh my gosh, and surgery.
I had
Whoa.
surgery, I forgot. I did an endometriosis. I was diagnosed with endometriosis. I was doing stim shots with the OBGYN. I did surgery with Dr. Hewish to kinda clear up my endometriosis. So, anyway,
Wow.
after that was still not that wasn't working, then I went and saw Dr. Amos. And
Okay, and he was the
so
fertility doctor.
the fertility doctor, yeah. So we started with the IUIs, right? Because I had already done all of the other medications and stuff. So we started with IUIs, and I did, I think, 3 or 4 different IUIs, and those failed as well. So at this point, I feel like I was getting a little bit more nervous just because,
Yeah.
IVF is like, you're like, that's the end. Like, there's nothing else beyond IVF. It's like, that's it.
Mhm.
So, but I still felt hopeful. I was like, "You know what? I still have IVF, like I'll get pregnant for sure from in vitro." And so we kind of started down that journey, and all of this was being paid for with cash, like I didn't have insurance covering infertility, which I know
Mhm.
is the case for most people, and so it was a big expense, but I felt like there
Yeah.
was nothing in the world that I wanted more than being a mom. Like I was only working full time so that I could become a mom and be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so we started the IVF process, and with my first retrieval, we got three embryos. I was trying to remember how many eggs I actually got, and I think it was like 9 or 10, and then out of that, I got 3 embryos.
Nice.
And my husband and I were so excited because we were like, "Well, we would have liked more, but 3 kids is great." You
Yeah.
know? Like,
Like, this is awesome.
yeah, like, we were like, "We're gonna have 3 kids, like, this is wonderful." Like, "Okay, this is great." My doctor recommended doing frozen transfers only. And
Okay.
so he just thinks that like your body needs a break, and
Mhm.
you've just been doing all these, stimulation hormones and stuff. And so we waited a month or 2, and we did the transfer and we just did one embryo. We're like, we're gonna have one baby. Let's transfer one embryo.
Yeah.
And it failed. And it was it was so, so hard because like I had said, it
Yeah.
was kind of like there's nothing else after this. And we thought, well, okay, we still have 2 more. We still have 2 more embryos, like, there's always, like, a little silver lining or something to hold on to. And so, a couple months later, we did the transfer with our last 2 embryos because my doctor said, "Well, your chances of getting pregnant are higher if you transfer both, right?
Mhm.
Just getting pregnant with 1 baby."
Yeah.
And so, we transferred both, and, that failed as well.
Wow.
And, yeah,
Waiting.
that was even harder, because at that point, you're feeling like, "W why?" You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just like
Yeah, yeah.
there's no answers, there's just nothing, and my doctor felt so terrible. I was literally like patient 0 at his new clinic, we'd become close. He came to my house even to talk to me
Oh,
about
okay.
it, and he was crying, I was crying, and it was very emotional, and by that point, I was like, I need a break," like,
Yeah,
I need an
yeah.
emotional break, I can't do it, and
Mhm.
so we took a break for about 6 months, and during that time, I started interviewing for a new job, which I got, and so that was exciting. I started my new job, and we started looking at buying our own house and stuff,
Oh,
and so there was things that, like, we were looking forward to. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Important to have.
Yes, yeah,
It's
yeah.
important to have those things to look forward to for
We
sure.
still were finding joy in the journey, like,
Yeah.
that's so cliche to say, but there were still moments of, like, we were obviously, we loved each other so much, we were so happy, all we wanted was to be parents, so,
Mhm.
anyway, I started this new job, and I didn't even know going into it that my company offered infertility benefits.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, I was so shocked, and I just felt so blessed, like, "Oh my gosh, I can finally try again after spending so much money on
Mhm.
everything, the medications, the treatments, you know what I mean?"
Yeah.
And so I started up again, and my doctor recommended doing another endometriosis surgery to clear it out before I did another transfer. And so we did another surgery. And when he was in there, he said, "Oh, I wasn't able to get one of your tubes cleared. It's blocked by who knows what." Which doesn't really matter because with IVF, you're bypassing all of that anyway. Just interesting, just things just kept adding up essentially. So
Yeah.
we did that surgery. I healed from that, and we geared up for my second retrieval. And so, we did the retrieval, and I think every time I did a retrieval, I would get more eggs. And so this time, I think I got like 17 eggs or something like that.
Wow, that's a lot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it gets
That's
crazier.
exciting.
Oh my god, just wait. My doctor had said too, like, "This time around, I really would encourage you to do genetic testing. Like, we need to know why your previous 2 transfers failed. Let's
Mhm.
see if you're able to actually make, genetically normal embryos." And we agreed, even though it was an extra, like, 3 to $5,000, but at this
Mhm.
point, you're like, I need answers. Like, I wanna know too, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so we went through with the retrieval. We ended up getting about 15 eggs from that retrieval.
Awesome.
And my doctor does ICSI with every retrieval. That's his standard practice. And so we did ICSI. And
Mhm.
there's the 5-day wait where you're waiting for them to call and give you the report about how many embryos have made it. And
Mm.
day 5, they called me and said, "We're really sorry, but none of the embryos have made it." Yeah, 0.
None of them?
None of the embryos after going through the whole retrieval process and
Gosh.
getting more than we had the first time, and we were obviously gutted.
Yeah.
Um, and then the next day, day 6, they called me back and said, "Hey, actually, 1 looks like it's going to make it, 1 embryo." And
Oh my
it
goodness.
was hard to even feel excited at that point because we felt kind of just already depleted, and it was like, "Okay, yay for 1, but it's only 1?"
Mm. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
they said, "Do you still wanna do the genetic testing? Because you don't pay per embryo, you just pay It's like it's $5,000 for up to, like, 7 to be tested, if that makes sense. You pay a flat fee, you know? And we said, "You know what? Yeah, we still want to do it." And so we sent that one little embryo off, and we kinda just this was right before Christmas, and we just kinda I don't know, honestly, I feel like our hopes were really down, like, we were expecting bad news after just more bad news, you know?
Yeah,
And
it
one
just
day they called yeah, one day they called and said, "Hey, so your, genetic report came back and it's normal, and it's a boy." And we were like,
oh my
"What?"
goodness.
We were shocked. And then we were excited, and also knowing the gender felt like, "Oh my gosh, like, okay, like, we have one." And so, not even a month later, my we were like, "Let's go again." My doctor said, "Let's
Mm,
do another retrieval so that we can put 2 at least 2 embryos back again, so that we can increase your chances." So I did
mhm.
yet another retrieval, very similar to the previous retrieval that I had just done with the numbers, and I think we sent off 3 or 4 embryos that time, though, to be genetically tested, so we were feeling good. One of my biggest fears was getting too many embryos because I didn't I didn't want that burden of like, well, what do you do with the leftover embryos? You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
And out of those, 4 or whatever, 1 came back normal and Kelsey. So out of that whole retrieval, I
Oh
get
my goodness.
1 more embryo and it was a girl. Yeah. And so we were like, okay, we're excited. We waited the month or whatever and we put back the boy and the girl embryo and I got pregnant, and I was finally pregnant, and it was 2017, so we had been trying at that point for a long time. It had been a really long journey between me not mentally accepting, seeing kind of OBGYNs who do what they can, the failed transfers and stuff, and so I was finally pregnant.
Wow.
And it was really
Yeah.
exciting, and I was pregnant with 1 baby. So
And you had put 2 embryos in
we
for
had
that?
put both embryos in, yeah.
Okay.
So we didn't know the gender though because we had put back a boy and a girl, So at
Mhm.
that point, I was like a normal person, I will say, who just got pregnant and didn't know what they were having.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun, and I waited until 20 weeks to do the ultrasound. I didn't do the blood draw or anything like that, So I just waited till we did the anatomy scan, and sure enough, it was that little boy
Oh.
who was the one embryo that they called and said, "The one embryo made it," and
What a
that's my son.
miracle.
Yeah, that's my oldest son, Bennett, and I feel like oh,
Oh,
yeah,
miracle right there.
it really was, and, he's just he's literally, like, the best thing in my life. Oh my gosh, sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry. It was such a
Yeah,
miracle and it's such a blessing, it's something that you were working for and trying so hard. And I mean, he literally defied all odds to
yeah,
be here.
he really did, and knowing that he was that one embryo and the one being sent off and just that one, you know what I mean? And the one that I
Mhm.
got pregnant with. And so anyway, he was born in December 2017. And so I didn't have any embryos left at that point.
Mhm.
But I knew I wanted more than one kid.
Yeah.
So at that point, my goal was I still wanted to just be a stay-at-home mom. Like that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm still working, in corporate
Mhm.
America, but I was like, let's get this train moving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well,
so
'cause
when
you
he
experienced how long it took too, and just not knowing
exactly.
how long it's
Yeah.
gonna take for the next.
Yeah. So when he was only 6 months old, I stopped breastfeeding so that my period would come back so I could start treatments again. And I
Mhm.
do have to say that that's actually one of the biggest regrets
Really?
of it. Yeah, because to me, breastfeeding was, like, such a special bonding experience that only you can do as the mom,
Mhm.
and it was really hard and sad for both of us to stop that, and he would just, like, cry on my
Oh.
chest, and, like, want me, and I was like, "No." And so that was hard, but like, when I'm breastfeeding, I don't have a period, and I was just really adamant about, like, I don't wanna be waiting, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I give myself grace for the time, like, I understand why, but at the same time, I just wish that I would have enjoyed him a little bit more instead of being so caught up in, like, what's next, like, I need to have another one, you know?
Mhm. It's hard to know though, what the future holds and what it's gonna take, and that whole experience had taken years,
Yeah,
and so you just didn't know what was gonna be in store.
right. Yeah, and so when he was 9 months old, I did my 4th retrieval.
Wow.
Yeah, and, my husband was actually out of town at the time, even, like, that's how normal it had become for me to be doing a retrieval, which is crazy, you know? Like, we had to use frozen sperm from him. Yeah, and so from that retrieval, I got 1 embryo. So every time I'm only getting, like, 1 embryo for so much work, and that one
Yeah.
was a boy as well. So, like, 2 months later, I was doing it again. I was like, "Let's do another retrieval." So I was back at it, and when
Goodness.
it was it was brutal. I wasn't taking any breaks really, and so I wanted to do, like, embryo banking and just have them
Mm.
all there, so then when I was ready to get pregnant, I could use them, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so when I started the next retrieval, I was, like, half I wasn't halfway through, but I was, like, in the very beginning of the month when like, I had got the medication and stuff,
Mhm.
and my insurance something happened with my insurance, and I called them, and they said, "Oh, you've reached your maximum coverage for infertility." And
Oh my
so
gosh.
which is pretty normal. They don't It's not like they'll cover however much you want, you know?
Mhm.
So now I was, like, kind of worried because I thought, "Well, I only have this 1 embryo," and, knowing my past, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, so it's all kind of riding on this retrieval, and my
Mhm.
doctor said, "Well, how about we give you half of the medication and we'll still, like, stimulate you, but with half of the medication so that we can do another retrieval." Like, we were already like, both of us were like, "We'll plan on doing a 6th retrieval, so if you get 1, we'll get 1 more," that kinda thing. And I said, "Okay, great." So I ended up doing, like, half of the dosage or whatever.
Mhm.
With this retrieval, Kelsey, I got 50 eggs. Yeah,
50?
50,
50?
50 eggs. Yeah,
Oh my
50.
goodness. I have never heard of that many.
I
50. That's
50,
amazing.
50, and so I was beyond excited because I felt like, "Oh my gosh, after all of this and the insurance, maybe maybe this could be it," and I was doing the
Yeah.
math being like, with every retrieval I was doing, I was getting, like, 20% was becoming an embryo, like, it was,
Mhm.
like, 1 out of 5 or 1 out of
Yeah.
So I was thinking, well, if it's, like, 20%, a 50, you know what I mean? I was like, I could have 10 just you
Yeah,
do all
run
the
into
a
scenarios.
numbers game.
Totally. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. It is. It's a numbers game in so many ways.
Yeah, and I ended up sending I can't even remember the number that I sent off for genetic testing, but I kid you not, I think it was, like, 20 embryos that we sent off. And
Oh
so
my goodness.
and that's
Wow.
where I was like, "Okay, if I send off 20, then I'll get 4 normal," and I was just so hopeful, like, "Oh my gosh, like, this could be it, this is what we've been
Yeah,
waiting for,"
yeah.
and so we sent them off, and I remember I was at work, and I got the phone call from the doctor and the nurse, and she said, "Are you sitting down?" I was like, "Oh gosh."
No. Oh,
I was
no.
like, "What?" And she said, "Brittany, you have 17 normal embryos." Yeah, 17. And I was like, "Oh," I was shocked, shocked. After all this time, this was my 5th retrieval, I had got 1 embryo, 1 embryo, 1 embryo, 1 embryo, and then
Oh
this
my
last one
goodness.
now I had 17. I'm like, now I have the opposite problem that I was worried about in the
Yeah.
beginning of, like,
Yeah.
"Okay, well, I'm not gonna have 17 kids," and we can talk
Oh,
about that, but I was so happy, and, so I didn't have to obviously
wow.
do a 6th retrieval, and I actually,
Wow.
Kelsey, donated my leftover medications to a girl who was I was kinda mentoring her through her beginning stages of infertility. She was nervous, just how I was like,
Yeah.
I had Bennett, and I was like, I would do whatever it takes to get here again." Like, I would literally do anything. So she took my leftover medicine, and anyway, she actually ended up getting pregnant from that medicine and stuff. So it
Oh
feels
my
just like I was
goodness.
able to, pay it forward in a way, which is really cool. So,
Totally, that's really special.
yeah. So when Bennett was we moved to Utah, and then when Bennett was 18 months, again, wish I would've maybe waited a minute, but was still, gung ho about being a stay-at-home mom. So when he was
Mm,
18 months, I did a transfer, and we did 2 again because of that's what we've done, and we did 2 girls because I thought, well, if I who knows with, pregnancy and stuff, because I don't know if you wanna talk about deliveries, but with Bennett, it was really bad, and I had preeclampsia, emergency C-sections, but
oh
I'm
my
like, "That's
goodness.
another story." Yeah, just of course, it had to be a dramatic situation.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, it
I did
was
not realize all of this. Wow.
it's it was not fun, but again, I'm like, "Well, we're here," So I did the transfer with 2 girls, and as my doctor was walking out of the room, he said he literally just finished the transfer, I'm still laying there, and he goes, you're gonna have twins, right?" I'm like, "What?" I was like, "No." I'm
Like,
like
there's no way, no way.
I was like, "Oh, okay, no," and I did get pregnant from that transfer, so it was very exciting, and sure enough, twin girls. I'm like,
Oh my
"Oh,"
gosh.
I was Brady, my husband, was like, "Why are you surprised?" I'm like, I never really considered it after how many transfers I had done, and,
Mhm.
we'd put back 2 every time and stuff, and so I was
Yeah,
still very surprised.
yeah.
Very grateful, obviously, nervous because I had an 18-month-old at home, and I knew how much work having a baby you know what I mean? So it was just
Mhm.
kinda
Yeah,
overwhelming,
yeah.
the reality was sinking in, and so yeah, I had my twin girls at 34 weeks because I got preeclampsia again, and so
Oh,
emergency C-section, got to the hospital, and they were born, 2 hours later. But,
oh my goodness.
it was it felt like,
Well,
well, this is just how my deliveries go, I guess, you know what I mean? So but
whoa.
preeclampsia is scary. So, they were here safe, I was safe, they were in the NICU for a month, and then they came home the end of February 2020, so right before the world shut down with
Wow,
COVID,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, so that was and then I had 3 kids, 2 and under. Bennett had just turned 2. Yeah, 3
Oh
kids,
my
2 and under,
goodness.
and
Party.
it's I don't know anything different. I just saw on a poll on Instagram yesterday, and they said, "What was the hardest transition with kids?" 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and I'm like, I feel like 0 to 1 is hard because you're a new mom, you
Mhm.
know? But I'm like, "Well, I went from 1 to 3 really fast," and,
Yeah.
it we loved it, we were just so happy, and so yeah, took a break from doing transfers, doing retrievals, and things like that,
Oh my goodness.
and then a couple years later, I felt like I wanna have I wanna have 1 baby, I wanna just have
Yeah.
1 baby that because twins, Kelsey, are, it's so much, and it's like it's
Yeah.
routine, you have to be on a schedule, you have to, like there's no, like what I missed with Bennett when it was just, like, being with the baby, you know?
Mhm.
And so oh, and by the way, while I was pregnant with my girls, this is the most ironic part of the whole thing. While I was pregnant with my girls, I was like, "You know what? I like my job and I wanna keep working." So,
Yeah,
like, after
yeah,
all of that, of, like, getting to the finish line of trying to, like, I just wanna be a stay-at-home
yeah,
mom.
yeah.
While I was pregnant, I realized, "No, I like my job and I enjoy working and having that outlet," and so
Mhm.
I'm like, "I'm still working today," you know? So,
Aw, I love that. There's so many great things about having a job that I feel like that really aren't talked about, like, it's wonderful. There's
yeah.
so many great things
I
from
don't
it.
and I feel like it's I don't know, there's guilt on both sides, right? But,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it was interesting, kind of another acceptance for me to be like, "I want to work," to actually say that out loud, you know? So, anyway,
Mhm.
it's worked out great for our family, and now I had all those embryos sitting there waiting for me, and so I decided I wanna just have 1 baby and just enjoy the baby and feel
Mhm.
like I can just really, like, snuggle the baby and stuff, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
we decided to have 1 more, and I didn't tell anyone that I was doing a transfer. I didn't tell my mom, I didn't tell my sisters, like, we literally just kept it between the 2 of us, mainly because, like, previously, every person on planet Earth, it felt like, knew exactly what I was working on, going through, which
Mhm.
was nice because it's supportive and you need that support,
Yeah.
but there's there's that feeling of, like, you're like, "I just wanna have a semi-normal experience and be able to surprise my mom, you know, with the pregnancy stick like everyone else does, or
Oh,
the onesie and
totally.
be like, "I'm pregnant," you know, instead of her being like, "When's your doctor's appointment?" You know, and knowing everything.
I relate to so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was in Utah still, and I still was seeing my Dr. Amels in Arizona, so I was doing everything kinda remotely also through, like, the Utah fertility centers, which is
Mhm.
not the easiest to have your doctor sending orders through another doctor and doing
Yeah.
checkups with, like, people you're unfamiliar with, but I just
Mhm.
keep telling myself that everything is temporary and, you know, when you have, like, the end goal, like, it was worth it to me. I love my doctor so much, I wouldn't ever move my embryos to someone else, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
And this is your doctor that was in Arizona, correct?
yeah, yeah, so he's been my doctor, yeah, since day 1 when he came to my
Oh,
house, you know?
wow.
And so I scheduled the transfer and I ended up flying to I did it by myself, like, Brady had to stay home with the 3
Oh
kids, you know?
my
And
gosh.
I flew to Arizona, and all my family was there, obviously, like, my mom lives there, like, my whole entire family's in Arizona. Didn't tell a soul, I stayed in a hotel room.
This
Yeah.
is so good.
Yeah, and I went and I did that transfer, and I got on a plane, like, 2 hours later, and I flew home, and we had decided, like, at that point, Brady and I were like, for sure, we wanna do a boy." You know?
Yeah.
We had Bennett and then the 2 girls, and so we are like, let's have 1 more boy," and so we transferred a boy, and I got pregnant with Bradley, and so no one knew, and I waited till I was, like, 9 weeks pregnant, and I told my mom, and I told my sisters, and, I mean,
Oh,
everyone was shocked, you know?
I
And so
bet. I bet they
it
were
was
so
fun. It was
excited.
fun, and telling my friends in person, I went to a wedding, and everyone was just so surprised, you know, because I
Oh.
hadn't told anyone, and so that was really fun, and I ended up not even sharing my pregnancy on social media at all either, like, I just was like, I don't know, just keeping it to myself, like, this one little not like a secret, but it felt nice to just, like, this is my own, you know what I mean? And so,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
his big reveal came the day that he was born, and the best part too is that I didn't get preeclampsia with him. I had a scheduled
Really?
C-section. Yeah, I, like, overdosed on magnesium basically while I was pregnant with him because I heard that
Mhm.
that can help with preeclampsia, so I took a ton of it, and I never got preeclampsia, and I had a scheduled C-section because I had
Wow.
had, previous
Mhm.
ones, and he came he came home with me, like, everything was great, so
A much more pleasant delivery experience.
yes, finally. And
Wow. Oh my
yeah, so
gosh.
he's, he'll be 17 months soon, and yeah, and my oldest is 7 and the girls are 5, and then I have that little babe, so
Oh
that's
my
pretty
goodness.
much it, but I do have to tell you too, like, I
You're
mentioned that
amazing.
I'm on medical leave right now, Kelsey, and that's because 2 weeks ago yesterday, I had a hysterectomy, actually.
No
So
way.
yes, which is also was a very, very emotional decision to
Yeah.
after such a dramatic journey to get to this point, to have it
Mhm.
end, of course, in another dramatic ending just felt, like, fitting, but
Yeah.
terrible at the same time,
Yeah.
when my period finally came back after having Bradley, I nursed him for a little over a year, and it was just terrible, like, super
Oh,
heavy and, with the
yeah.
endometriosis, and I have
Really rough.
PCOS. Yeah, and it was just so bad, and with my last delivery, they said, "You probably shouldn't have any more kids. Your uterus has a lot of" I think they said abrasions, I can't remember the
Mhm.
exact word, but it was
Okay.
pretty, like, used essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and I didn't wanna risk getting preeclampsia again as I get older, you know what I mean? And so I came to that decision, like, if we're gonna be done, like, let's just be done and not have a period anymore. And so, 2 weeks ago, I had a hysterectomy, and I'm like,
Wow.
"Oh my gosh," just after all of that time, ending like that was also just kind of hard.
Mhm.
So
Totally.
yeah, that's my story. Sorry it's
It's
so long.
amazing. That's super amazing. I'm
But
actually super curious to know because my husband, Jake's been asking me, he's like, when we're done having kids, you need to have a hysterectomy because I have horrible periods too. And
mhm.
it's a hard way to live.
Yep, yep. And my period was starting to be, like, instead of every 28 days, it was every 21 days, which they still
Oh
claim is,
my
like,
goodness.
normal. I'm like, "I can't do this." It
Yeah.
felt like every 2 weeks I was
Mm.
dealing with it. And my doctor
Yeah.
had said too, like, "Well, we could put you on birth control, you can try an IUD." And I'm like, "Why?" I don't wanna do these temporary fixes, I don't really wanna be taking the hormones, like, I've done that, you know what I mean? And so I just did the hysterectomy, and originally, I wanted to do an ablation, but that's not even a 100% guarantee either.
Mm.
And when you've had multiple C-sections, there's greater risk that while they're doing the ablation, they could burn through your scar, your uterus. It's thinner, and so that's where I just can't. I was like, you know what? Let's just let's just call it a day and remove it all. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's pretty wild. I mean, that is such a journey, Brittany.
Well, it's crazy because I think, like, now that I'm on the other side of it, it's like I just put it all out of my mind, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, it was so hard, and sometimes when I say it out loud, I'm like, I can't believe that I did
All that
all of
you've
that,
gone through.
you
Yeah,
know? But,
totally. I know. Is there anything you learned about yourself in the process?
I guess just how resilient I am, how, like,
Yeah.
strong, determined, and, like, yeah, I guess I feel like a different person, like, looking at her, I'm like, I'm impressed, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, I'm like,
Yes.
"Wow, like, you really did all of that," and I'm proud of myself because it wasn't easy with all the different surgeries and failed and doing so many retrievals, but I'm just grateful, that I kept going and that we kept working at it. And anyway, so I just
Totally.
feel happy to be on this side, but I still do have those embryos.
Yes. What are you
Yeah,
thinking about those?
we just don't,
Yeah.
honestly. Like, they're just frozen and we just pay every year. the storage fee to have him frozen, and, I kind of brought it up to Brady since I was getting this hysterectomy of, like and he's like, "Well, we could still use a surrogate if, we wanted to have another one or something," and but I'm like, "I feel good with my 4." I'm like, I have plenty going on,
Mhm.
but he says that he'll pay for those babes to be frozen until the day he dies. Like, that's basically
Oh,
how he deals with it, is like, I'll just pay for them to be frozen for forever. And so,
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that I have to respect how he feels about it too, and remember that, like,
Mhm.
just because he's not the one going through the retrieval or
Mhm.
having to do the shots and stuff, like, he still is emotionally invested,
Yeah.
in it, and, like, if that's how he feels, then I respect, that. I'm like, "Okay, we'll just keep paying for them to be frozen until something feels different," or
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so at this point, that's kind of where we're at right now because, yeah, like, we just can't think about anything
Mhm.
anything beyond that right now, so
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, I think that's a good way to go about it. And I think you are really smart about also realizing that, like, there's multiple parties here. Like, your husband also has those feelings too. And so I think it's really great that you're realizing that and acknowledging that. Cause I think a lot of times, I'll be brash to jump into something or be like, oh, this is what we should do. Or, but it's hard to know what to do with those precious little embryos, and yeah, that's where ours are at too right now. It's just frozen and till
just on ice. Yeah,
something else
exactly.
feels yeah.
Together, right? Like, not just
Yeah.
me, not just him, it's like we need to decide together or yeah.
Mhm.
And right now it's too fresh, I think, still, just since our baby is I call him a baby, but he's more of a toddler at this point, but it's still just too new, you know what I mean? So, we'll see, but one thing I forgot to say to Kelsey in the beginning that I wanted why I was so excited to talk to you was because when I first went and saw Dr. Amos, so I had seen the 2 OBs
Mhm.
and I had done Clomid and Femara, I had done stem shots, I had done those kind of first steps. This was
Mhm.
back in the day, right, when all of the, like, message boards and things like that were really big, everyone going through infertility is really Googling everything.
Yeah.
And so I had created a baby center account and I posted on there saying my first post ever. Like, I had never done anything and I posted something saying, "Oh my gosh, like, it's come to this. I'm going to see a fertility specialist." And I was just like I said, it took me a long time to, like, mentally get there,
Mhm.
And so I was just looking for support of, like, like-minded people who had been through it, and I said, "I can't believe that I'm, one of those girls, part of the club, essentially." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, "I can't believe that it's come to this," basically,
Mhm.
and, oh my gosh, Kelsey, I got torn apart, torn to
Really?
pieces by these other girls and other women saying, "How dare you say that?" And "Why would you come on here?" and blah, blah, all this stuff, and I was so taken back, my
Oh my
feelings were
goodness.
so hurt because I came looking for support, I had no one to turn to, like, I
Yeah.
had no one else that had gone through anything like that, like I said, my cousin did for Mara, she got pregnant or on
Mhm.
Clomid, she got pregnant from the Clomid. I had
Mhm.
no one who had actually seen a fertility specialist, like, no one in my family had
Yeah.
issues getting pregnant, my sister was already pregnant, my younger
There's a
sister,
whole
and
world.
so
Yeah.
I wanted friends in that community and someone to
Mhm.
lean on and say, like, "We get it and it'll be okay and it's hard, but, like, you got this." And instead,
Yeah.
I was met with total backlash of saying because I said people saying, "You better watch your back," and stuff, and
Oh my gosh,
I
that's
was
scary. That's so sad.
it was terrible, and I removed my post, and even then, I was getting messages saying, "We can see you removed your post," and, like, "You're a coward," and all this stuff, and
Oh my
I
gosh.
could not believe I could not believe the things that people were saying to me, and I didn't understand why. Instead of, like, building up, it
Mhm.
felt like they were all just bitter and angry that I would this newbie who right, they're upset, like, "You have no experience, you have no right to come in here." And now that I'm gone through all that I've gone through, I'm like, I wanna go back and say, like, "Really? Like, we need each other more than anything instead of tearing each other down for saying, "Oh, you haven't done any real treatments at this." It's like, no. And so for a while, I had a YouTube channel called I Am That Girl. So kind of playing on because I said, like, I can't believe I'm that, well, I am the girl that had to go through hell and back to get her family here and stuff. So
Mhm.
anyway, I just thank you for creating, an uplifting and positive experience, I think, for people to turn to because I did
Oh,
not have that. I didn't have that at all. And so it's nice to
you're so
hopefully be part of
sweet.
that, and I'm like, I'm happy to
Oh.
like answer questions or if people I met 2 girls when I was going through that retrieval that ended up being Bennett when they called me and said there was no embryos.
Uh-huh.
I was Googling, like, what are the chances and blah, 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 and there was a girl who had posted something very similar, like, 2 days before, actually, on one of those boards, and so I posted something saying, like, "This is happening to me right now too," and there was another girl that said, "Actually, same," and so we started talking, the 3 of us, and
Mhm.
we took it off the message board and started emailing, and these were just strangers. One lives in Virginia and one in Mississippi. We started messaging, and then we took it to, Facebook Messenger, and we talked every single day, and those girls became my everything. Like, we've never even talked in person, we've never
Oh,
met, and we talked every day for years,
wow.
and I still consider them, like, my good friends. Like, we send Christmas cards to each other, we know each other's kids, you know what I mean? And so, they both ended up having a baby too, like, she had a baby just, like, 2 weeks before I had Bennett, and then the other one had a baby, like, 3 months after I had Bennett, and so,
That's really
anyway, I just
special.
think it's important, yeah, to find those people and
It is. It's
find
so
the hope,
important.
you know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah, like,
it is.
cling
The
to that.
hope, the positivity, because there's so many days that can be hard or down, and it's like
Mhm.
being able to find those friendships to help pull through it and finding those little glimpses of hope and those stories that pull us through it, like, that was everything to me too. It's like that anytime I met someone that was going through IVF or that had been on the other side, I was like, "Please, can I take you out to lunch?"
Yeah.
Like, I just need to learn anything and everything I can because it's like you just those are what brings the hope. Like, I mean, for me, that's what brought the hope a lot of times. It was like hearing that there's there's another side to it. Like I can get through
Yep,
this. We got through it.
yep.
I can get through it too.
Yeah, and there's always I feel like even now too, like, the technology is even more advanced than when I was going through, like, those retrievals
Mhm.
and things,
Yeah,
like, it's just getting better and better, and so, like, if it doesn't work the first time, the second time, like, I mean, I did it 5 times, and I feel like and I know there's people who have done it even more, I've
mhm.
gone through it, but I just it's like, don't give up, so
I love that so much. I think that's such good advice.
it's important to have those people, and I feel like you were saying, who people who have been through it have a different sort of understanding and empathy than someone who hasn't, and like, those friends have great intentions too, but if you can find those people who really get it, I think that's helpful too,
For
so
sure. And I'm so grateful you were able to find 2 people that were also going through it as well, because I feel like that's fun to, like, bounce off ideas and be like, "How did your appointment go? And how did this
oh,
go?" And, like, I
100%.
mean, how
Yeah,
fun is that to be able to have someone in that same stage? That's pretty cool.
it was cool, and they're a bit older than me, so at the time I was 29 when I had, Bennett, and they were both, like, 38, 39, and so they were having a different experience than I was, and one was having secondary infertility. She had a
Mhm.
four-year-old, but, couldn't get pregnant again, and the other friend, she just could never get pregnant, and she ended up using a donor egg with her husband's sperm, and she got
Cool.
pregnant, you know?
Yeah,
So, just everyone has such a unique story. Both of them were able to get pregnant as well and being 40, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think it's just important to find those support people and people who you can lean on, so.
for sure, for sure. Do you feel like there was anything else that helped you through those hard times?
When I was going through my my transfers. So when I did the transfer, my 3rd transfer, when it was the boy and the girl that I ended up getting pregnant, the first one that I got pregnant
Mm.
with finally, I did acupuncture
Oh, nice.
and I did positive fertility affirmations. So at that point, you're like, "I will do whatever it takes." Like, I've already
Mhm,
had 2 failed transfers, like, what can I do that's different, that's going to
mhm,
change the outcome from what
mm.
I've experienced before? So I
Yeah,
did acupuncture and these positive affirmations. It's just like something I found on Spotify, and it's like this woman's voice in your head being like, I am fertile. I have a healthy environment for a baby. And you kind of just repeat all of these things. And I'm like, you know what? I totally believe in the positive thinking and the positive vibes and the
yeah,
acupuncture.
me too.
I did all of those things with each of my subsequent transfers and got pregnant. By the last transfer, I was kinda like, "Do I need to do the acupuncture again?" Because I don't love needles, you know? But
Ah.
I also felt like, I can't risk it, like, I can't
Yeah,
not do the acupuncture, you
totally,
know?
like, I feel like it helped.
Oh, yeah, I'm like, "I have to." And the other thing,
Oh,
like, this is so superstitious, but after the same transfer that I did my first one that I got pregnant, after the transfer, the nurse said, "Well, you gotta go home and watch She's the Man." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, all of our patients who have got pregnant have watched She's the Man after their transfer."
that's
And I
hilarious.
was like
Amanda Bynes.
I was like, "Okay." And so Brady had to, like, I mean, at the time, there wasn't even, like, streaming services, so he had to go out and find at a used bookstore She's the Man DVD so we could watch it at home. So that's also
That's funny.
part of the ritual. Yeah, when I was on the plane flying back from Arizona, I'm watching She's the Man on my phone, like, this is I gotta keep it up, so I don't know
Oh,
if anyone
that's
out
so
there is trying
great.
to find something new to add to their routine, maybe try watching She's the Man after your
That's
transfer, so
hilarious. I mean, it's a fun movie for sure. I love it.
classic. So,
It is.
anyway.
Oh my gosh, that is so great. Oh, I love it. Brittany, you are so amazing. And I'm so proud of you for the amazing woman that you've been through all of this. If,
Thanks, Kelsey.
oh, if anyone wants to reach out to you and connect, is there a good place to do that?
Yes, of course. Like, you can reach me on Instagram. I'm private, but just send me a message or a whatever, a follow request, and we can chat there. My Instagram's Goldfish Brit, which it's been since Instagram started. So you can find me
Cute.
there. And then my husband and I do have a podcast. We put it on hold the last 6 months because life. But we're going to be picking that up again, and it's called Way Less Formal. So we kind of just chat back and forth about whatever's on our mind, current events, things like that. So it's kind of fun. So yeah, you can find us there too.
I love it. I'll make sure to link those in the description below as well.
Okay.
Oh,
Awesome.
oh
Kelsey, thank you for having me.
my gosh, thank you so much.
I feel like it's been therapeutic to actually, like, say the whole thing. I'm very surprised I was crying
Oh.
about Bennett, but, I'm just
Well, it was a tender
grateful.
tender mercy, a special moment.
Yeah, needed it. So, feel
Yeah,
very blessed and very grateful and putting out all positive vibes and good thoughts for anyone that's going through it right now, and hope
for
that they
sure.
can get that, positive very soon. So,
Yes. Oh, I know. Sending all those happy vibes.
yes.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us here at the Infertility Club. Don't forget, you got this. For more hope, support, and positivity, watch this next video.